I don't think you were on that live, but we were talking about respectability politics. So when we talked about Riri Williams and the characterization of Riri Williams in this show, everybody keeps saying, "Well, why she's so smart? Why did she have to go into criminality?" But what I did not hear is the her her PTSD and the emotional and mental capacity that she was in. We ourselves did an excellent video about this earlier, where they talk about well, she should have used the garage and just started fixing people's cars, and she would have made money in no time to build a suit. And I said, what, and I posted this on there, and I wish I could get these guys on so we could. And I have no problem with them or even their take. My take was, well, when she went into that garage, she literally had an emotional breakdown because that's where her best friend and her father were killed at. So how would she be able to make any money? Like, we almost forgot the mentality side of this character in this story and the impulsiveness that she did that probably led her into doing this. You see what I'm saying? So every time I hear a critique, nobody's never talking about
But
her
remember,
mental capacity in that.
but remember, black people, there's apparently nothing wrong with us. Everything that we do is because of us. I mean, think about it. Black women back in the day, they weren't allowed to use anesthesia practices because they thought black women felt no pain.
Right. I even brought up in the book, like I said, that I have The Black Image and the White Mind by George Fredrickson, where they talk about a black slave being beat by by a white female slave master because they felt they were taught that blacks had no nerve endings like cattle. So because he got branded and passed out, she beat him to death because he wouldn't get up, and she had to go to court for that, and she won because of what was acknowledged. Now we got Miss Burke up here. What do you think about, as far as like characterization of black people in either whether it's fantasy, whether it's any type of media? Do you think we're a little sensitive when it comes to the topic of how we are characterized in media?
No, DreMac, not at all. We're not sensitive. We're not sensitive. I think that so much of this is won and lost in the subject of, or in the on the realm of who writes the story, who tells the story, who directs the story is a big part of it. So,
Mm,
a lot of times you will see stories that are written by black writers or screenwriters, and then you get a white director and you get off into another direction. But obviously, when we understand the 400-year history of this country, so much is baked in stereotype. We know the history of Hollywood, where
mm-hmm,
how blacks were depicted in the very beginning of the film industry,
mm-hmm,
which we didn't control. And so when people are making decisions about roles, they're extremely limited for black characters, as we have seen with so many people that had to sort of take the servant role or the step and fetch it role, or et cetera, and so on, the stereotype. But I don't think that we're at all overly sensitive. There's so many stories that don't get told. You remember when George Lucas had to put out his own money to do Red Tails because
mm-hmm,
Hollywood didn't want to pay for it. That kind of
mm-hmm.
tells you something right there, that the story of the Tuskegee Airmen, which is a story should have been told many years before that movie came out. It would sort of tell you that any depiction of black folks in a historic light is somehow always delayed and somehow never getting green lighted. And then every depiction of this sort of negative, some violent tale of something is always getting green lighted. I mean, we're seeing that not only in music but in movies, of course, as well. And that is highly problematic because when you're dealing in a country that has historic segregation, a lot of times what people see on screen, whether it's the small screen or the big screen, is the only thing they quote know about African Americans. So that is
Mm-hmm.
a very problematic setup, and it's really only until recently, maybe the last, after the black exploitation period of the '70s, where you had black directors really in charge of the depictions, the characters, the stories, and everything else. And even that kind of starts with sort of that New Jack City era
Mm-hmm.
To be interesting, but in some ways dubious as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
because
talked
you
about that
only
earlier.
one thing, one corner of the community, and when you look at certainly other groups, there's nuance. There's good, there's bad, there's this, there's that. With us, it's like there's only a few different types that you're seeing on that screen. That's highly problematic.
And okay, so in this story, I don't know if you've seen the Ironheart series or anything on Disney Plus, but in this series, this is a young black woman
Hmm.
that went to MIT at 15. The original writer in the comics, which is Brian Michael Bendis, one of the great comic writers of our time, placed her in Chicago, and this was in 2016, and this was at the height of what was going on in Chicago,
Hmm.
where it just seemed like every weekend we heard about a young black death there, and just the craziness that was going on in Chicago at that time. So he kind of wrote this character as a genius who lost her or her father, stepdad, and her best friend due to gun violence or somebody else's accord. They're just innocent bystanders. They lose their lives. And in this story, they depict that story, but because to me the girl is so impulsive, she takes a deal with guys who are, are depicted at the time as this Robin Hood type of group. We're gonna steal from these rich people and we're gonna give it back to us because this is a story. And a lot of the discord that came from that was, why did the smart, intelligent black girl had to go be a part of a gang? And when I think of gangs, I'm thinking of, Pyrus and Crips and, and especially in Chicago with vice lords. And I'm like, she could have been, if she was sticking up corner store, and like my argument was like, well, she ain't like sticking up corner stores or nothing like that. So,
Hmm.
or something like that. But I can understand, why did the young black girl had to go into this criminality? Ryan Coogler, who's the executive producer, should know better. There's a black writers that's on here. There's a black director, female director. What is going on? That has been the discord. So that's
Yeah.
why I was talking to Tori and all of this about that. I seen, to me, because I watched this story. I watched it again with my 14-year-old son,
Hmm.
and because he is on the spectrum of autism.
Hmm.
He was asking me questions, and the way that I parent him compared to my other kid is different because he's in a different realm for understanding. And in this story, they show her with so much PTSD, depression, anxiety, impulsiveness, and all of that stuff that I kind of had to deal with him about. That I
Right.
kind of understood why Riri would do something we would say is stupid, but everybody else is like, she's too smart about that. You think that is that a trope that we use? Because black people ain't supposed to feel nothing. We supposed to be smarter than that. Why would she do that? Why shouldn't he go get a job?
Well, I mean, I would say probably 90% of what we see from Hollywood is going to fall into the category of trope.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's always the thing that is missing. I grew up in New York, and suburban, middle class family, that type of thing. And one of the things that I find increasingly annoying about Hollywood is just that the thing that is always missing when it comes to black characters is just the simple working class black person that
Mm-hmm.
represents the majority of the people out there. The fact of the matter is that criminality, gunplay, and all this other stuff is actually rare. Okay, I mean, when you have a
Mm-hmm.
city such as New York that has 8 million people in it, and you look at the
Mm-hmm.
homicide numbers, and you see at the end of the year it's usually about 300, 400 people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that is 0.00000.1% of the population. But
Mm-hmm.
and that the media understands that if it bleeds, it leads. We are going to give attention to that. Hollywood is effectively doing the same thing. It's like when you look at movie posters, whether it's Denzel Washington or anybody else, like the lead character usually has a gun in their hand doing
Mm-hmm.
something involving,
Mhm.
shooting bullets, whether they're a cop or a criminal or whatever else. So for black characters in these limited roles and limited opportunities, what we're seeing is criminality on screen in some case. I mean, it's always
It's
sort of
some fame and fortune. I mean, it's up.
and so
Mm-hmm.
what's missing, of course, in that is what the majority of people are doing. which is working every day. It's like going to work and coming back. And my dad was in law enforcement, so it was kind of like this for me is all very foreign. I'm also a little bit, turned off by just the sort of negative general depiction of black males in general in our society. There is no, I worked in the media, and so much of the time there's nobody black and male in the room to even defend that position. So everybody's talking about black males in particular, but they're not in the conversation.
Right.
So like they're objectified, and it is no nuance. There is no details. There's none of that. It's just sort of, we're talking about you, but you're not in the conversation. Now that posture right there is a dangerous one, because the image on the screen that thousands see over and over again is a very, very oftentimes a very negative one. You probably maybe seen me on Roland Martin a few times. Sometimes we've had a few conversations where the topic of the color purple has come up.
Yes.
I absolutely cannot stand, and I've always hated the color purple. When it first came out, I hated it. When they lost all the awards and didn't get the Oscars, I was glad they didn't get the Oscars, because I hated it. I thought it was there's not one black male character in that entire movie that is a positive one. Now, half my family grew up in the South. I get that we all have different stories and all that, but I just don't understand why, of all the stories that could come out of African American life, that's the one that's depicted. Then we get a musical. Then we get like 3 or 4 iterations after that.
Right.
I just think it's it's a situation where what you've just depicted, which I've not seen, is just sort of typical. It's the run of show. It's like every character's life has to lead into something involving law enforcement and the police. Well, most people, black and white, by the way, but we're talking about black folks, of course, have no connection or contact with law enforcement. That's the part that nobody wants to talk about.
Right.
So this is all very interesting, that every time you turn on the TV or look at a movie, that's what's happening. So that would be my thought on that.
And for me, and Torian, you could jump in at any time. For me, I worked in law enforcement for 3.5 years. Working for corrections for Kansas City, working directly. Our division of corrections were city, so we worked directly with KCPD. Going to courts, all of that. Basically, kind of the holding facility until they went to court. So we worked directly with the courts and all of that. So even when I first started, black people come in, the first thing they tell you is that, nope, don't talk to them. They're criminals. I mean, these people haven't been sentenced yet. These people ain't nothing. They're criminals. Nope, don't have a conversation. Nope, don't do this. So immediately, if I did not have a brain of my own, I probably would have been like a lot of guys that I worked with. I've seen, and I'm just telling the truth because I can't get in trouble about this now. I've seen officers beat inmates, all kinds of. I'm legitimately seeing this for myself. Talk to him crazy, all of this. You know what I mean? So when I was defending Jonathan Majors, that's because of the history that I went through, because I seen both sides. I didn't say there wasn't any good cops or good officers or anything like that, but I'm not going to sit up there and deny what the hell I seen either.
Right.
So, even in these nuances with these characters, I try to look at both sides in our media. Again, did Riri come from a working class family? Yes. Her dad was ran an automotive shop. They really didn't say what her mom did, but her mom actually had enough money to move outside the outside portion of the south side of Chicago. If you ever been to Chicago and you really go to the real south side of Chicago, it don't look like what is in this show. It's totally different. It's Cabrini Greens, if you really want it, in certain parts. So it wasn't like she was in the hood. It wasn't like she had to do it. It was impulsiveness. And sometimes I feel like even in our characterization of our media, we can't have character. We can't do things that lead us into a certain way without it looked at, we're falling into a trope. And what I mean by that is that if you have depression, if you have anxiety, and you have these particular mental health things that should be addressed in our community, if they're presented on screen, and I said this even with magazine dreams, clearly, Adrian Killian has some mental health issues. Instead of the issues being dealt with, what did he end up falling into? Criminality, property damage, and all of this, and just doing stuff. But nobody sat back and said, that's bad representation. I don't know. I think that's what I'm having a hard time fighting. Maybe because it's in the superhero space, do we want to see more positive representation in the superhero space? But I think it's almost like nitpicky. Go ahead, Tori, and I'm sorry.
I want to know what's so interesting is that we had a show on Disney Plus that dealt with that in the form of Moon Knight.
Yes.
How many personalities was he going through all at one time? Mm-hmm. And how many people empathized with him because of that?
Exactly.
But when it came to what's going on with Riri Williams, just slap a Band-Aid on it. Oh, she's so smart. But that doesn't mean that she doesn't go through things. That's not what that means. Just like if it's a person who has a lot of wealth, listen, I would argue and say some of the wealthiest people have some of the worst issues, even than those who are not even close to being in their percentile. I mean, they be like they go through a lot. I can't say like I know, but they have different problems than we do. But to sit there and say, oh, because she's so smart and how could she not, how could she fall into those tropes and everything like that? That's crazy. Considering that a lot of these Marvel characters have a lot of criminality in their past. Don't get me started making a list.
Right.
That people end up praising in the end.
Right. So my question to you two, is that, or even in art, can we not be human sometimes in our art? And this is to the audience also. Do you feel we can't be human at times in our art?
Well, we certainly can be, and we should be, but I do think too often what we're seeing is sort of these extreme examples of. I think we see extreme examples when we're depicted, but no other group is sort of depicted in the way that Black Americans are on the screen. Like, so there's no way you could ever get away with any of the things that you're seeing, collectively. The industry that is Hollywood could not get away with the depictions and the way that we're depicted with any other group other than us. Some of that is just that there's not enough of us around to say this is bullshit, right? And
right.
So we're outnumbered in that sense. And it comes across in some subtle ways, like, one of my favorite movies, because I like Eddie Murphy, is Beverly Hills Cop. I'll just watch it on. I'll just watch it for no reason, even if I know I've watched it 1,000 times. And if you ever think of like the way that the movie opens, there's a scene of Detroit. They're showing parts of Detroit, and it's like Black people, in poverty, standing on the street. These are the things that like see these general movie opens. You've seen that 1,000,000 times.
Yeah.
And it's a very subtle thing, but what it does, it embeds into everybody's mind, Black and white, that this is how Black people live. And they don't depict places like PG County, Maryland, which is like one of the richest Black suburbs in the country.
Yeah,
right.
Or even New York, even parts of New York, Brooklyn or Queens or something like that. So that is not there. That's always missing. It was until the Cosby Show showed up, you really had not seen. I mean, I think the Jeffersons really did some of that. You had a businessman, in a high-rise building in New York. So there was some depiction there of wealth. And then, of course, you had the Cosby Show that really went there all the way,
Yes.
But that was seen as, oh, this is so shocking. Yeah, it's shocking because this is the part of the community that never gets depicted.
Yeah, because you got to think about like all the shows that we saw before that, like, Good Times and Sanford and Son and everything like that, of how Black life was depicted on television up until that point. And then, it even carried over into the 90s because, you got to think like, the late 80s, early 90s, because, you had shows like Family Matters. They lived in Chicago and they were not in the hood. Like you had Carl, who was a cop. At the time, I think I forgot what Harriet used to, because I know Family Matters.
Harriet, Harriet was she was actually a maid in a previous show, and it was a spit. That's how we got Family Matters.
Yeah, and then even with Fresh Prince, you had Uncle Phil who was a lawyer. You had Aunt Viv who was a teacher, and they lived in a mansion in Bel Air. They lived a really good life. They didn't live in the hood. That's why I miss when you had shows like that, and even in shows like that, they still had hard hitting themes and episodes even
Yes,
sprinkled throughout. So they were like, we'll give you the funny and the comedy, but we also going to hit some hard hitting topics as well. And that's what I used to love about shows back then, because those were some creatives
Yeah.
back then. And I think that was at a time when they were trying to break away from the uh every black person coming from the hood or a broken home or a broken background. And then even though it kind of sprinkled even into the early 2000s, like one of my favorite shows from the early 2000s was My Wife and Kids. I loved that show. I always felt like My Wife and Kids was one of the last major black family sitcoms. Between that and the Bernie Mac show, I feel like, because those came out around the same time, I feel like those were like the last two ones right there before the reality show boom happened.
Yeah.
I would put it like that. And that's a whole nother monster for for another day. Even
they
Go ahead.
reality shows because they probably didn't want to pay the actors, but
Oh yeah.
it is interesting to think about some of these shows. Another favorite of mine during COVID, I kind of binge watched it on cable. I think it was on Netflix. Was Friday Night Lights,
Mhm.
and it made me think about a bunch of stuff, mostly white characters, of course, in that show, but there was no black male. And here's a football. This is a football show, right? And there's no black male father in that entire show. And of course, the running back, who's the black guy, his father is non-existent. There is no father. His mother's raising him. And I'm like, there's not one. Now, in fairness, they kind of did that with the white characters as well. There were several white characters that didn't have fathers in Friday Night Lights. But the point is, again, it goes back to that stereotype of we're either doing criminality, or the black men are non-existent, or they're in jail, or they're coming out of jail, or something like that. It's always in there somewhere. So
and the thing is, the stats don't even back that up. That's the crazy
Right.
part.
exactly.
Not even back that up, but they keep doing it over and over and over again, and it's like, okay, we see what you're trying to do. Like, the thing is, no matter how much you try to project it, the reality is that's not what it is in real life.
Right.
And for me, let's go back to Riri. In this show, they do show the black father when the shooting happens, because he's in his shop. They're having a good time. They're talking, and the shooting happens. So the first thing he does is cover her best friend and try to cover Riri, but Riri's stuck because it's a shooting. So she's frozen. And you know, on trying to save her best friend, that's how both her best friend and her stepfather lose their life, because he's trying to protect them. And not once in any of these critiques they say, well, we did have a black father that's actually a hero. He tried to save them. He didn't know that shooting was going on. Nobody knew. They were just in there having a good time. And this what happened, which technically that's what happens in the comic version of what happens, because they're trying to tell the story on literally what was going on in Chicago at that time. Which, do you really want to face that sometimes? No, because that's too hard. But we've seen this multiple times where, like you said, in our older shows, they talked about that. They did it in Fresh Prince. They did it in Family Matters. They did it in every black show.
Right.
Mhm.
So, they show that, but the critique is, what would that PTSD actually look like when you're a smart, intelligent person? In the main thing you're trying to do is you're so hyper focused on, let me build something so I can save somebody, that you actually fall into these same tropes because you're too hyper focused. You're not sitting back. You're not getting the help. You're not getting this. You're not getting that.
Well, the thing though is, DreMac, is that here's the thing, man. Like, when I look at the 5,000-foot view of the entire thing, the fact that the story is always in the context, okay, you're a hero, that's great. It's always in the context of something, gunplay, violence, criminality. So what you're branding is you're branding black folks to gunplay, violence, criminality. and it goes on for 40 years. You know, we're going up for 4 or 5 decades of these types of shows where we are doing something involving guns. Well, why is that? Now, my dad was, by the way, also a prison guard. He was a cop, and he worked at Rikers Island. He did the same thing, bring crooks back to court usually. And this is New York in the bad old days. It's like 80s, 90s, you know, New York, where stuff was actually happening that was crazy. And he unholstered his gun in a 20-something year career, maybe twice. You know, I mean, this idea that, I know when we look at Blue Bloods or NYPD Blue or whatever, yeah, everybody says bang, bang, shoot 'em up. But in real life, it's pretty rare. It's actually fairly rare. So, I just think it's problematic that when you look at the sweep of television over a great distance, you've got to usually turn the cable to find the nuance or to find the Black character that actually is just a normal person going through life. Now, I know that might be boring when we're writing a script. Not everybody can be normal. Everybody's going to fall asleep. I get that. But it wasn't until things like, you know, Denzel, I think, was in St. Elsewhere, and had Eric LaSalle was in ER. Yes,
yep.
There, you know. But even the Eric LaSalle character was like this angry Black male character. You know? He was effective, but it was like there's something always bothering this guy, you know. And you know that those folks exist as well. But I just think they're overrepresented.
So it's a bigger problem all over Hollywood. It's just not MCU. It's just not, you know, these studios. This is a problem with Hollywood all the way around.
Definitely.
Yeah. And we just talked about Mr. Terrific on the Superman movie. Oh, let me just say this real quick, Tori, and then I'm gonna get to you. The conversation now is, because Mr. Terrific comes out and he has a deeper voice. He's more kind of like, yeah, I'm direct like this. That's the way I kind of talk. Now everybody's like, this is a 70s job. He's talking job. It's a 70s character.
Far from it.
So even a strong, you know, hey, I'm gonna tell you what it is and get out the way type of character, Black man, you know, that's not talking no bull job and all of this. Even now that's a problem. You know, it's almost like, hey, we can't win for losing.
It's funny because they like to talk about the Black quote unquote stereotype in Hollywood, when it was the quote unquote Black stereotype that saved Hollywood from going under with the Blaxploitation era.
Exactly.
You should be thanking them, because MGM, Metro, Goldwyn and Mayer was about to fold until they came out with Shaft. And then they said, oh, we got to keep this going because we have a hit on our hands here. And by the way, y'all just got a sneak peek into one of those commentaries I got coming on Monday. So y'all better watch out, because I got a whole lot to say about that. But it's funny that they keep saying that, you know, they don't like all this and the third. But how many times has the so-called stereotype saved Hollywood from folding? Multiple times. I mean, look, well, you know the obvious. Blade saved a whole comic franchise. You know, Marvel as an entirety, from every media property attached to Marvel was about to go away, and then they came out with Blade, and it became their most. It came a benchmark. A foundation was laid down when Blade came out, and the rest, as they say, is history.
I'm not sure that the stereotype. I don't know. The stereotype saved Hollywood, as did the audience showing up that had been abandoned or had not been paid attention to. Said, oh wow, there's a really strong Black male character on the screen. I haven't seen that before. Let's go see that. And then you've got this. It's kind of sort of happened with Malcolm X, right? This strong who the person was being depicted, but it's such a rarity that you're going to be running to the theater if you're the Black community, because you're like, oh my goodness, you know, this is.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people love Denzel, because he's always going to play that strong Black character, no matter what role it is. As much as I didn't like him in Training Day, the performance was there,
right?
You know, but the performance was there. And like I said, whenever Denzel's in a movie, people are gonna go see it, whether the movie's good or bad. They know Denzel is gonna give a great performance, no matter what he does. So, you know, that's why, you know, he was like the go-to guy. And another movie, I don't know how I forgot this one, Lean on Me with Morgan Freeman. That
Right.
is one of my favorite movies, and I might have a little bias because it did come out the year I was born, 1989. So so there it is. So it is. But overall, that was such a great movie, and I was so mad, but not surprised that movie did not get as much award recognition as it should have. Like when I'm looking at that movie, I saw so many nominations that movie should have gotten. I mean, definitely from Morgan Freeman, for sure. Even that one of my favorite scenes in that movie, and I have a lot of them, is that interaction that he has with him and his boss inside of that courthouse after that meeting. That scene is pure masterclass acting.
And he told him, let's go eat afterwards. After all of that.
They said, all right, let's go get something to eat. And I tell people all the time. Yep, Robert Guillaume, aka Benson Rafiki from The Lion King. But I always tell people that if you want to get into acting, especially if you are a black man getting into acting, you want an audition piece, that's
the perfect one.
That's the perfect audition piece for a drama. That is a perfect audition piece.
Somebody, yes, and Hooligan brought something up that I talked about on the show, I think a week or two ago, when Colombo, he was the head of the Colombo crime family, but he went on for office. You know what I'm talking about, Lord, because he was in New York, and he was an Italian crime boss, but he decided, I'm going to run for office or whatever in New York, and he started representing the Italian, it was Italian Justice League or something like that.
About Michael Francis.
Michael Francis was a part of that. So, in here, Michael Francis talks about, I think is it Chuck Colombo or Paul Colombo? Can't think of his name. Joe Colombo.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, when they come out and he's talking about, hey, we're going to put a stop to The Godfather because of the way we're portrayed.
Right.
We're portrayed in there, which they went on to make. I mean, sometimes anytime you watch Italian movies, they kind of have that that stereotype in there. But I don't think I don't know if they embrace it and they don't even care anymore about that. But that was a big theme for them, how they're portrayed. And then The Godfather comes out. They said, well, we were represented right, so we're not tripping. And then they made nothing but more crime mob movies after that.
Well, obviously, I mean, there's a few things there. One is that The Godfather deals with a lot of nuance in that story.
Yes.
So it wasn't just bang, bang, shoot 'em up, and then we're done here. There's a lot of stuff going on that is deep. It's not just on the level of the peripheral, there's crime and we're doing the rackets, and there's a lot of deep stuff going on. And to me it reflects is that Francis Ford Coppola and of course Martin Scorsese and a lot of his films, you have someone from that community writing a story about that community. And in fact, I think in the case of Francis Ford Coppola, a bit of a reflection of his family. I know Mario Puzo is the writer, but I think that he understood the culture and obviously his family. And so now you've got this really deep story, this really deep portrayal. I can't think of a Black story that quite does that, in part because so many of our stories are interfered with. Okay, because you can have the Black director, but it's like Spike Lee does a really good job of walling people off. It's like he's not just got the direction part, but then he's got Black folks involved in a lot of these facets. Sort of what Coogler does with Sinners, where you're doing a deep, nuanced analysis of how our culture has been misappropriated and people steal stuff, and then he's doing a whole thing about Irish history as well that most people probably miss. But my point is, because Ryan Coogler knows the history of so many things, you get these really deep, nuanced things, but it typically takes somebody from the community to do that, because if you don't do it right, we're now doing stereotype. Right? And we're doing stereotype. That's typically we're the target of that, because we're outnumbered in these studios, set, all the whole bit. So it's an interesting thing to think about The Godfather, because of course a lot of violence. We're talking about criminals on screen, talking about violent murders happening on the screen, and then you're finding yourself strangely rooting for these people, right?
For
So
the,
it's kind of
exactly.
this interesting thing going on.
Yeah, because we said that, Tori, when we talked about the Penguin. The Penguin is a horrible character, like a horrible person. But then you look at his nuance, and they gave his character some time to breathe. You learn about his family. You have all of this, and next thing you know, nobody has a problem with it. Nobody has a problem with this guy, doing murders and criminality and stuff like that, because they pull back the layers of this character so much to get you to understand the character that you end up rooting for a criminal.
Right.
This is the problem where I have with a lot of critiques about Riri Williams. They actually did pull back a lot of layers on this character and say, this character has went through this. This character has been through this. This character is feeling this. This is emotional. She's impulsive. She's trying too hard. She's not letting herself breathe. The mother character in here is kind of trying her best to try to instill some wisdom in her, but she also doesn't want this character to lose this character, because not only did she lose one husband, she lost two. One, her original husband, Riri's actual dad, I think in the comics dies of cancer or something like that, when she was little, and then she marries the other guy, and he's taking the gun violence. So her character is even like, I don't want to push her too far because I don't want to lose the last piece of what I have left. So there's nuances in that, but we're missing that looking at criminality. If you get what I'm saying, Notorian.
Yeah, it's like as soon as they go into the criminality thing with her, that's the part that they stick with, and they get stuck on that part because they've always associated criminality with Black people. And I'm like, well, when you peel back that layer, and it's not even that thin of a layer to peel back, you will find that there are a lot of other groups that have done way, way, way worse than we could ever do.
Yeah, no doubt. And one of the things here is that you peel back the layers might be nuanced, you're peeling them back, but then you're returning to the stereotype. So after the layers are peeled back, we're back to the same old stereotype at the end of the peel back. Like, you just want one time for it to be the case that, okay, can we just see somebody that doesn't have a gun in their hand, or is doing something criminal, or is the victim of violence, and then like I said, the missing people are always straight Black men in these stories. I mean, you had mentioned before I got on, I heard you mention Tyler Perry. I kind of have a love-hate relationship. I love the fact that he owns a studio, and he's a business owner, and he can do whatever the heck he wants, and he got it from busting his ass. I mean, self-made guy. On the other hand, I'm not as excited about the over depiction of gay Black men in a community where gay Black men are not the majority of people, right?
Yes.
So gay folks are not the majority of people. It's not that
less than 1% of our community,
right? Less than 1% of less than, I think it's like 10% in general. So the over depiction makes me suspicious, right? It's like, we're all straight Black men, right? Like, so if you're doing a sort of an equal balance, and you got men in dresses and all this other stuff, funny though it may be. I mean, everybody at some point you chuckle at this stuff, but it's kind of like, to me, it's an over depiction. I do ask myself as I'm watching this, we're the straight Black men, right? And Hollywood loves gay Black men. Let's face it,
they do.
But there's sort of over representation there. And again, who's making that decision? It's usually going to be a white producer, a white casting agent, a white this person, and these are people.
And they love depicting them in a certain type of way too.
Right. That's right. That's absolutely correct. And so it's not like you say, okay, that is part of our community, but that part of our community is not that big, and so it's overrepresented in the art. I do think certainly, being from New York, certainly the gay community is very powerful in the artistic community, certainly very powerful on Broadway, certainly a big player on Broadway. But I'm just saying, in general, when you look at the numbers, you do wonder, okay, where are the straight Black men who are fathers in the home, working overtime? I grew up, I guess I'm born with two, I know, right? I grew up with two parents in my household the entire time. My father wasn't missing. He's working double shifts at Rikers Island to put me through college. So, that for me, and I understand that's not the story that everybody has, and that doesn't, negate anybody else's story. I just think it's been overrepresented, the negative tropes, particularly on black men. I would say for black women, as usually, one of my hated movies is Precious. I can't stand Precious. I can't stand that movie. I mean, like you're hearing all these things about how, but the nuance. What was the other one? It came out right about the time of Precious. She got an Academy Award. What was it? I'll think of it. Torin, keep talking. I'll think of it in a second. It was another one.
Yeah. But what was I getting ready to say? Oh man. I was so lost in what you were saying. I forgot what I was going to say.
I talk about overrepresentation for LGBT, but again, LGBT is part of our community just like every other community. But I just think there's overrepresentation.
I seen Precious once, and that was enough for me.
Junior Network is reading my mind, so it's Monsters Ball.
Monsters Ball.
Yeah, with Halle Berry.
Yeah. What are we doing here? like, what are we doing? So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think I had read somewhere where Angela Bassett had a conversation with Halle Berry and telling her that she should not do that movie. Of course, Halle Berry didn't listen to her, and she went on and did that movie, and she did win an Oscar for it. Right. And I said that year, if y'all remember, that was the year where they awarded two black an actor and actress with their top acting honors at the Oscars for playing Stereotypes. You had Halle Berry win for Monsters Ball, which they said she was like the first black woman to win in the lead for that ever, and she wins for basically playing a hoe. And then you have Denzel for winning for Training Day for playing a crooked cop. Mind you, that same year, Will Smith was also nominated for Ali, and more people would have preferred he would have won over Denzel. But we know why that wasn't the case, because a lot of people in Hollywood at the time didn't like Muhammad Ali.
And also, of course, the biggest injustice of all was Denzel not winning for Malcolm X. That was, of course, the year that Pacino wins for the wrong movie. So Pacino should get an Oscar, but not for that movie, right? Son of a Woman. So it's like, what are we doing? Like, so basically, when it's funny because you're right, Denzel, Training Day was kind of an outlier for him. He usually plays the strong black male hero, right? Yeah. And he does this Training Day movie, and that's the one that he wins for. So what message is being sent there from Hollywood? I think it's fairly obvious. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. I feel the same. And I was also talking to Dre last night when you had Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield in Judas and the Black Messiah.
Excellent movie.
They both got nominated for supporting actor. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, if they're both in the supporting acting category, then who in the world was the lead in the movie? I mean, we know who the lead was. It was definitely Daniel Kaluuya as Fred Hampton. But I know why they did that, because they knew that they knew who was going to win. They knew Daniel Kaluuya was going to win, but they did not want to split it, because if they did, that means Daniel Kaluuya would have won Best Lead and Lakeith would have won Best Supporting. So they said, let's put them in the same category where only one of them will win. So that was a very controversial nomination. And I don't think a lot of people even called that out. I'm like, I don't know. It's because it's still in the middle of the pandemic when y'all having this awards, because it wasn't 2021. But when I saw that, I said, oh, I know exactly what they did. They didn't want both of them to win. So let's just give it to one of them.
Absolutely. So at this point, I'm going to open here in a couple minutes. I'm going to open this up so some of the audience could come in to give their thoughts, or, kind of whatever you guys wanted to, portray in this subject, whether you agree, you disagree. Just please keep it under 2 minutes with the conversation. And I would just bring you guys up accordingly on that. But go ahead, Lauren. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. I just, while we're doing call outs, I can't hear something that you said, Torian, that just made me think of Harriet, the movie Harriet, and of course.
Let's not
You know what I'm gonna
let's
say.
not go there because I got my thoughts on her, boy.
You know what I'm gonna say. So, of course, I'm a big Harriet Tubman fan, and of course, the story is incredible, as we know. But of course, they had the Omar Dorsey. It was played by Omar Dorsey, the bigger, long character, who of course kills the Janelle Monáe character. And of course, I was a history major in college, so I pay close attention when a film introduces a character that doesn't exist in real life in a real story. So I mean, Harriet is a real person, and so you could find out, who's around her. And so, they have this big, gigantic, dark-skinned black male who is effectively the worst character in that movie. Now think about that for a second. Harriet Tubman being chased through the woods by a bunch of white folks that are trying to catch her. And you would think one of them would be depicted as the villain in this tale of the early 1800s or 1830s. And yet, no, we're gonna substitute that villain for a black guy that is actually converted into a slave catcher. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, that was insane, and that got criticized at the time, and it should have.
I know I criticized it.
I bet you did.
I criticized a lot of, not the actual movie, well, that part, but also one of the actresses in that movie, kind of. Yeah. So
and then the way that they sabotage Nate Parker with Birth of a Nation.
I mean, that's probably one of
a travesty. That was a glaring travesty right there.
And when I tell you that's probably one of the best films, and I'm mad because that film is actually on my PlayStation. When the PlayStation, you could buy films on there. I can't put it nowhere else. So if I lose my PlayStation, I lose that. I just have to rebuy it somewhere else. But we got Puma Lee coming up. What's going on, Puma? What you got for us?
I have to rebuy somewhere else. You got Puma Lee coming up.
You have headphones or your background is loud?
Okay, let me turn my TV down.
Yeah, because you're getting bad feedback. There we go. Can you hear us now?
Look like he froze.
He froze.
He'll be back.
Yeah. So I'm gonna remove him just for a second until he comes back, and then, but yeah, that's just like Queen and Slim. The biggest villain of the movie is the black dude. Like, come on. Okay, he's back. Okay.
Crazy when that.
All right.
The movie is the black dude.
Mute the TV.
Oh, okay. Hold on, I gotta mute my TV. The movie is the TV. Oh, okay. Hold on, I gotta mute my TV.
Hold on.
I guess the mute button on the screen. Okay, here we go. Turn this down.
Are we good?
You good? All right.
All right.
So,
let us know your thoughts on this conversation.
So basically, I look at it like this: if you look at the old pictures from back in the days that we had, like with like you said, was talking about the Jeffersons, shows like The Rock, shows like Living Single. They showed us in our realness, the way we really operated and the way we function. But it seems like a lot of these major studios don't want to give us the support, don't want to give us the writers, don't want to keep the writers that we actually have that are doing or want to show us in the right way. A la shows like back in the days like Soul Food that showed us as a family being going through our struggles, going through our ups and downs, but yet having positive role models like strong black men that go to work, that take care of their families, that raise their families, that maybe struggle sometimes, but at the end of the day, we show the love and the positivity in our communities. They don't want to recognize that for some reason. They feel like, you know what, that doesn't sell, but that's been disproven so many times, and with positive people in our neighborhoods.
No, I most definitely agree. I know you brought up Rock and other shows like that. Do you think is overrepresentative even in a show like we talk about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where um the main character, one of the main characters, is broke. But he works for the United States government in the army and should have never been broke, where he can't take out a loan. Or in the show like Ironheart, where she shouldn't even have to get with the hood or Parker Robbins and all of this just to be able to make money. Do you agree with that?
I look at it in reality. I came from a financial background, right? So I had money up, I had money and I lost money sometimes, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I see that when they shows and roles like that, they're trying to just keep us down and limit us to what we really can do, because there's no way a man came out the army, has all that that um that status, Captain America behind them, um was introduced to Tony Stark and all these other characters, was a superhero, but yet somehow you can't get a backing. When we know for the fact that even in the comic books, Tony Stark funded a lot of these uh, the Avengers, and they had payroll salaries. So it was no way this man should have been broke.
Right. So do you think that that's, because that's the question. Do you think that that's a harmful stereotype with Riri
Most
Williams
def-
getting into
most de-
this? And
Most definitely, because Riri, from number one, she just came from Wakanda, one of the richest nations, and you mean to tell me nobody's looking out, nobody's behind her? That was absolute
right,
insanity.
right, which I agreed with. I agree with, you know, uh, so she was with Shuri this whole time, and somebody Wakanda couldn't give her, just a little extra money so she could make sure she good. She technically, literally helped them fight a civil war, a war with the Talocans, and she
And
couldn't get
and
a dollar.
right, and even if and even furthermore, if you think about it, Wakanda would have wanted to look at her and make sure that she's, you know, how she's living, how she's doing, because they want to make sure that she wouldn't come against them. So they would make sure she have certain things, so that way she wouldn't need to even think about that going against them, or betraying them. So why again wouldn't they step up to the plate?
I
I look at the movie with the Captain America, the recent one. You showed this guy, the original Captain America. You know, he cared about his suit, he cared about his honor and everything else, but yet they downplayed a lot of his actions and his role in his community, because like I said, he even was raising it, he was stepping in as a grandfather, raising Elliot, the Patriot, right?
Elijah.
But Elijah's, thank you, because I forgot the name of the character. But you know, even that part, they didn't even fully put it out there, because like I said, we know who he becomes, who the Patriot becomes, but somehow he's missing. And when it's for the record, why isn't Sam ever portrayed with a woman? I mean, after this, I, why black characters somehow don't seem to have relationships?
That's why I was so mad when they took out T'Challa, because I said my main purpose of reasoning as to why I was glad that T'Challa was in there is because I said that could have been a good segue and point into X-Men being Storm, because we all know that him and Storm got married and they had a
Yeah.
child.
But yet they but yet
But you
but
know,
yet they want to give us, they want, I'm sorry to talk over the go ahead. They want to give us in the comic books a white T'Challa, a white Black Panther, and for what reason? Because white people love Black Panther. They wanted to see more of it, but for some reason, the higher ups are so afraid Disney, I'm gonna call them out. Disney does not want to show us in a positive way for some reason. They still want us to be kept in the 1940 era, you know, downtrodden, beaten, never seen as successful, never seen as a strong role models in the world.
I agree. I agree. Pumali, thanks for coming up, and I appreciate you lending your words to this conversation. I appreciate you, brother.
Gotcha, Dre.
And he is absolutely, Puma is absolutely right on a lot of this, and this is the reason why I wanted to have this conversation. And again, these are open up. I'm gonna be on here probably for another about 13 minutes. These are open up, but I think he makes uh, uh, a good point about Disney. I literally showed the article from the Hollywood Reporter about how Peltz and Perlmutter felt literally about black people. They literally said, "Why do I have to have? I can have a. Why do I have to have an all women's movie like the Marvels? It got nothing to do. I guess nothing with all women. But why do I have to have that? But then when it came to Black Panther, why do we have to have all black people on screen? And it was the end of the conversation. That was it.
I actually talked about that, and I think Dre, you had. I think you might. Did you go over a react to a video where someone was breaking down like when the first Black Panther movie came out, when Captain Marvel came out, and even when Aquaman came out, and how all three of those movies made over $1 billion because that was like you had a black lead with Chadwick Boseman, you had a woman with Brie Larson and Captain Marvel, and then you had a quote unquote, I guess you could say, person of color with Jason Momoa in Aquaman, and all three of those movies made $1 billion. And then after that, you sidelined where there wasn't a black lead, but you had a black woman as the lead, still with a majority black cast. Then with the Marvels, you paired her up with a black woman and a Pakistani young lady. Then with then Aquaman, that was a travesty. Second one. And then you had other movies that came after it, but none of them made over $1 billion until, like No Way Home. But I don't count that because you had to bring back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, plus all the villains from the old movies to pack that film up. And it became like a nostalgia film for it to make $1 billion. Because honestly, I don't think even with that, it would have made $1 billion. But what I'm saying is that when you had all of that going on, the movies made money. But then when you remove that element, they dropped.
I mean, the minute that film made $1 billion, the entire argument about whether or not a black film could make money should have ended. I mean, I'm not
exactly.
I mean, there's so many hurdles that you have making a movie on this level. The hurdles are unbelievable, and the checkoffs and the sign-offs are unbelievable. But once that movie proved that it could do it, and then what happened with Sinners to me is the other one where it's like, like, when does this conversation end when it comes to whether or not a black movie can make money?
Hello. And then with Sinners, the word of mouth surrounding that movie was just so impeccable.
It was incredible.
Like, I mean, like this movie, I think stayed in theaters way longer than it was supposed to. Like they got to a point where they just had to pull it out because they were meeting that digital release deadline. So it's like we gotta pull it out of the theater. So, and I said Warner Brothers, in my opinion, even though Warner Brothers is pretty much broke right now, is probably the studio to beat this year because they had Minecraft, which made near $1 billion. Then you had
950.
And then you had Sinners come out a couple weeks after that did what it did. Then you had Final Destination Bloodlines that came out a month after that, and that was successful. Then you had F1, depending on how you feel about it, it still made
F1
money.
Is great. That's a great movie.
That came out after that, and now you have Superman, which they're projecting is to make him like around $130 million domestically. So that's why I always said that I said Warner Brothers might be that studio to beat this year, even more so than Disney. But it's all about how, going back to the conversation of how we're represented. That's why people loved Sinners so much, and it had so much rewatchability. When I was looking online and saw so many people saying they saw that movie 5 times, I'm like, how did you find holes in your schedule? to see
Exactly.
5 times. And for some people, all in the same week. Like y'all went 5 times, so that means you went like once a day or like every other day or something like that. But they found a way, and then they re-released it in IMAX to keep it in the theaters longer. Like when they was getting ready to pull it out, they said, "Oh, we're going to re-release it in IMAX to stay another week," because people could not get enough of this movie. The movie had, of course, you know, it had appeal with us, of course, but then eventually it had global appeal. Like this movie has legs.
Yeah, I actually bought it on YouTube because it's easier to just watch it over and over again, and you miss so much because he's got so much detail on the first watch, you know. But the fact that it was in part about the stealing of Black culture and the various, you know, theft of our culture and ideas, etc., and so on. I still say one of the best lines in the movie is what the Indian says at the door to the white couple. You know, it's really important to let us know if you let these people in your house. You know, like, I don't know. It's just really well done. It really made me think about the old days of when word of mouth would blow up a movie. We haven't seen that.
Yes.
We haven't seen that in a long time.
Before social media.
Right.
I mean, back in the day when I remember back in the day, people would come to the theaters early, not only so they can get a good seat, because that's back in the day when you had no assigned seating. So it was like a first come, first serve thing. That's right. But also, that's the only way you can see the preview or a trailer for a movie.
That's right.
Was you had to see it in the theaters. Nowadays, they drop the trailer, of course, on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah.
So a lot of times when you see the trailer in the movies, you've already seen it. But back then, seeing the trailers before the movie was an event in and of itself, because sometimes if the trailers would be good and the movie be trash.
Right.
Absolutely.
You know, somebody in the comments, Antoine Film said, you know, the strong Black male lead in Sinners. You basically have, of course, 2 strong Black male leads. You could actually argue you probably had 3. But that right there, you get the lingering feeling in the first, you know, 15 minutes of the film. Where it was like, okay, we have a really strong Black male. We have 2 really strong Black males. What is going to go wrong here? Because, you know, the thing, of course, is set so long ago. So, you know, the whole depiction of the South, and then you've got these 2 strong Black men. So I'm expecting something crazy to happen. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm converting myself that there's 2 strong Black men on the screen. You know,
what I liked about this, about Sinners, is that all the Black characters in here were competent.
Right.
Like none of them were slacking in any way. I mean, of course, you had Michael B. Jordan playing a dual role, and I loved his performance because it was like I was looking at 2 different people. I was like, "Are you sure Michael B. Jordan does not have a twin out there?" Because I mean,
he portrayed the movie.
Because they were so competent. And then I loved the Annie character because she knew. You know, she worked with them. She worked with them mojos and them spirits, and she knew to do protection charms and all types of stuff. She knew she was the one that called them and knew that they was vampires. Like, she figured it out. She was telling them how to ward them off, how to stay safe, and all types of stuff. So that's what I liked about it. And even with the Delta Slim character played by Delroy Lindo, even though he was the comedic relief of the movie, and you know he was meant to
strong
be funny,
Black male character.
What I liked about him so much was towards the part when he was getting ready to die, is that he said, "I'm going to do what I can to protect Sammy." He wants to make sure that he lived, and he sacrificed himself to protect him, because he knew. Because it goes back to what he said when we first meet him. He said, "Shoot, I may not even be here 10 years from now." So it goes to that part when he says, you know, Sam, he's young. Delta Slim is older. He's lived his life. He's done all that he can. But I want to make sure that this kid has a future. So I'm going to protect him at all costs. So that was a moment for him where he wasn't being comedic. That was when he was like, wow, this guy like literally sacrificed himself to save a kid he just met that day.
Right.
That day. Absolutely. And Azelle Ray said, Dre, I think I said this once on here that why didn't Hydra AIM or even Stay International didn't hire her in the show, because that was a big thing. Why did Riri didn't get a job? So the way that I look at it, because there is a scene in the beginning of the show where the teacher or the professor, Riri does something and everything starts going haywire, and she was like, "Oop, oop, oop." She did it again. And next thing we have is her in the dean's office with the professor and the dean. I'm not saying they wrote it like this, but my initial thought was that they knew that she was selling homework, that she was doing stuff that she wasn't supposed to be doing. So they were probably people that were probably going to reach out to her. And just to me, either they were hating or because there's no way that she didn't get a phone call from nobody. You know what I mean? For Ford, I'm a UAW Ford guy. So Ford didn't call her for engineering, the robotics technology. I mean, we're making EVs right now. You're telling me Ford, GM, nobody didn't call her unless they were trying to go through the dean or somebody and they were telling her, nah, she ain't ready or something like that. I just
You want to know why they didn't call her?
Because she black.
No, well, that's one part of it, but I don't think that's the main reason. I think the main reason they didn't call her is because she would put them out of business. She would end up running that company because she's smarter than they are. She's probably outsmarting their own technology, and she would be considered a threat to them.
I could see that.
Remember, she said that she was doing homework assignments where even her professors were questioning how she got to that equation because they didn't know. She was too,
absolutely.
Her brain is so big, it's so massive, and it's always running at millions of miles a minute, which it works for her. But as you can see in the show, it works against her because she's always acting on impulse. She doesn't think things through. Because her mind, she doesn't have an off switch, as you saw in one of the episodes when Natalie was telling her to just rest, but she couldn't rest. She laid in the bed for less than 30 seconds and got right back up and put her suit on and then laid back in the bed because she was always on. And then when her mother was screaming at the TV because she was watching X-Files, she jumped up out of the bed in go mode and kicked down the door.
Busted like the Kool-Aid man.
Like the thing is, that's what I was saying. That's the thing. That's the con for geniuses. Their minds are always on go mode. They never have a chance to just rest or relax. Some of them you will find don't even take vacations because their mind is constantly moving like a hamster wheel. They just don't know how to stop and like smell the roses. And that's how Riri was. And that's what I like because that's how actual geniuses are. I bet you Einstein was like that. That's probably why his hair looks so funny. He didn't take enough time to sit there and watch his hair. That's probably why it would look like that.
Because I was a kid, they used to say, well, Einstein, he used to wear the same outfit all the time. He couldn't tie his shoe, all of this stuff because he was so smart that he couldn't do anything else, if you get what I'm saying. So that's actually a good question, Azale. Appreciate that. The informant media is coming up. The informant media, what's going on?
Yo, am I coming through clear?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Go ahead, my brother.
Yeah, how's everybody doing? So good. I actually want to say this. I didn't finish watching Ironheart. I'm on episode 5 right now. Very well done show. I saw Torian's live earlier. Well done. I think when we see stuff like this, I notice how people are just jumping to conclusion with the stereotypes. I don't know why they jump to a conclusion with the stereotypes other than trying to market to their audience. But I think that we do need more films like this because I wasn't all sold into Ironheart at first, but then I watched the episode and the struggle she went through to how she became who she became. Even though she betrayed some people, they overcame it. I think that was a well done story so far. I haven't finished the last episode, but so far it's well done. I don't see I understand why they doing the hate and everything. Geeks and gamers, they're just stereotyping these characters just because they're trying to fit a narrative. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you probably didn't see it, but the whole thing is that there's a market on the internet for selling the stereotypes and trying to put down shows or movies, something like that. There's a whole industry here which people can monetize. So I wouldn't give these people too much credit. I actually passed along to Torian Rain, some idiot who actually just did he's doing an Ironheart review. And you want to know who he put in the suit? I Can't Breathe. George Floyd. Yeah,
I saw that.
Yeah, so, and I unsubscribed to him when he did that, man, because I follow him because he did a review of The Last of Us, and I agree with him. The Last of Us season 2 was trash. I agree with him. I agree with all his his commentary on it. But then he jumps to this Ironheart thing, and the first thing he doesn't even criticize the show because he didn't watch the show. He just jumped. Oh, it's a black girl. She's in the neighborhood. She's with a bunch of minorities. They're all robbing, stealing. They're doing what black people and minorities do. And I'm like, bro, you don't even live in America. You can tell by his accent. He don't live in America. He's not nowhere near black people in America, nowhere near minorities in America. But this is what you're doing all the way in your country. I think he's in Australia or some crap like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, but overall, I give the show 100%. Like on Rotten Tomatoes, whatever the hell they call it. I give it 100%, man. So far, I haven't been disappointed with it. I'm very satisfied with the show. Even though to me, the stereotypes don't matter because it's showing her overcoming she's overcoming, what is the word I'm looking for? She's overcoming it's a storyline. The storyline makes sense to me. It's perfect to me. And I think people are just upset with the show because they're trying to feed into their fan base. They're trying to feed into their AdSense. They're trying to get their views up. They might be, well, they are racist as well. But at the end of the day, I think it's about them getting to the bag. And the way they get to the bag is selling racism to their audience and stereotypes to their audience. But that's all I want to say, man.
All right, man. The Informant Media, appreciate it. I know you come in every morning when I'm doing my morning show, so I really appreciate you coming in and lending your voice to the conversation.
Oh, no problem, man. Have a good one, y'all.
Thank you. And that's, I think that's the point that I was kind of getting at before I wrap up this show. I think that's the point I was getting at, is that I think when I look at stereotypes and the people like, oh, this is stereotype, I'm like, man, if you've seen some of the stuff online, these people ain't got to go to Riri Williams to see stereotypes. There's girls in here. There's literally go to Twitter. You can go to Facebook. There's girls fighting. There's girls half naked in their little shorts or whatever. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot to me, just as to me, and I could be very wrong, but to me, there's a lot more harmful images by our own people for attention that Riri Williams could ever touch. That's just my personal opinion. Laura and Toria, what do you think before I wrap this up? And I'm gonna get to that super chat for Puma Lee.
Well, I mean, I think that we're so baked in stereotype over almost a period of a century that when you see real people, you think something's wrong. Like, so when when people are just like normal doing the day to day, they're like seen as that can't be Black America because we've been watching this stereotype and then that must be it. Mm-hmm. You got to realize that some of these media platforms certainly do not have our best interest in mind. One of which is run by a white supremacist who clearly thinks that Black people are inferior and has this magical way of bumping up into the algorithm all sorts of negative imagery of Black people. If you want a news example of that, just look at the New York Post. They're always figuring out a way to put up,
or the Daily Mail.
The Daily Mail, the mug shots, the whatever. Oh, let's have somebody Black that's done some crime. Oh, if it's on video, we running that over and over and over again. So that's what they're doing. It's very deliberate, and they're always trying to send the message that we are superior, they're inferior, and that's why we got to do all this stuff to them. I mean, that's been the play for 400 years. Okay, they just have more technology now. So I'm not too keen on this idea that we are the culprit, because there's a lot of people in the Black community putting out positive images that get completely ignored.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not only informally, just individuals on social media, but people, of means that are trying to put out positive stuff, and they get completely ignored by mainstream media and everybody else. So, this thing could very easily turn around into the opposite thing happening if those voices were in fact amplified. But that's what I would say about that.
Torian?
Yeah, I completely agree. And when you said that, it reminded me of what Robert F. Smith did for those Morehouse graduates back in 2018. And now, mind you, I had known about Robert F. Smith years before he did what he did, because his story is such a great one. But then when I learned about what he did for those Morehouse graduates, that's when the world found out about him, because he's a real low-key guy. Like, he, if you know about him, you know about him, but he's not someone who's always out there, which is probably why he didn't buy I forgot what NBA team they wanted him to buy. And he just straight flat out said no. He said they would look bad on my portfolio. I said the guy knows his business. He said that would look bad on my portfolio. And he was the wealthiest Black man in America, but I think somebody took his spot. I think he's like number 2 now. I forgot who's number 1. But like I just think about what he did. He doesn't get talked about often, but he's a low-key guy. But like I said, there's plenty of positive. That's why whenever I get a positive story, I may not make a video about it. I will post it on my community tab. Like, I think one of the last ones I did, or the stories, you know, you always hear about it. The black kid that's graduating with honors with a 4.5.0, getting millions of dollars in scholarships. Then, of course, you know, you got the usual suspects on there trying to figure out how in the world they did it. They want to say, oh, it's DEI. Oh, it's this, that, and the third. No, it's just intelligence, because not everybody out there is on the corner trying to sell this, that, and the third. There are actually some black people that do study. You know, they do know how to read a book that's not in 14 font double space or with pop-up pictures. They actually do know how to like put in the work. But, you know, again, going back to the stereotype that they put on to us as a collective, that it drowns out the positive that's there. And it's a lot of it, but it doesn't get pushed. That's why whenever, again, like I said, whenever I get a story like that, I make sure to put it out there as conveniently as possible, because it needs to be exposed. It definitely needs to be talked about. And that's why most of the stories that I come across are our youth. Like, we're talking about teenagers, like people from the ages of 12 to 19 doing amazing things, you know, going to college early, graduating college early, getting high honors, getting all these scholarships. Some of them out here inventing different things. Some of them getting big jobs in tech. I always tell people, if you go to college, even though I didn't do it when I was in college, go to the school of STEM. It's a reason why STEM gets the most funding. It is a reason why. I didn't pick it up at first when I was in college, but it's a reason why STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, gets the most funding out of every department on any college campus, whether you go to a HBCU or a PWI. It's a reason why they get a lot of funding, is because those jobs make a lot of money. Some of them straight out the gate, like starting. Some of them are getting near six figures.
Absolutely. And which you said that, I remember voting against our locally. They took away the SIM program in my neighborhood that I'm outside of Kansas City. I'm what they call South KC, which is more middle class blacks or whatever. And they took the SIM program out of an elementary school where my son, you know, like I said, on the spectrum of autism, was actually learning. And like, he is one of those kids where if he starts learning, there's no stopping him. Like, he wants to know everything.
That's why I was so mad when Nipsey got taken out, because that's what he was doing. Yeah. And out there in LA. Like, he was like, after he had like got that Grammy and everything, and he had that, I remember watching that interview he did with CBS, and he was showing that he was like building like a facility or a center for young black kids out there to learn how to code. Now you gotta think, this is Nipsey Hussle that we were talking about right here, a person who's only known to most people as a rapper. And he was building a facility for kids to learn how to do coding. And then what ended up happening a month later, he gets taken out. I was so mad about that. A lot of people was mad because, you know, he was their favorite rapper. But I said, no, I was mad because I just learned what this guy was getting ready to do. And what he was about, like what I was with what he was about to do in LA that could have transcended beyond LA. And then that happened. I'm not even gonna lie to you. In 2022, when I went out there, you know, some of the people, I knew some people out there, and they took me around and they took me over to Slauson, where the Marathon store was at. Of course, it's gated up now. No one can go there because it's boxed out to the public. And I went and stood in front of that gate, and I'm telling you, I was almost brought to tears, because that moment came back to me when I heard what he was about, what he was preparing to do. Like, they interviewed him and everything. He showed the facility, like what he was prepared to do. And then that happened. And then, you know, I doing my tinfoil kufi, and I said, I wonder, was that the reason why? So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I lived in LA. I lived in Compton. It's the only reason why I came back to Kansas City, because there wasn't no jobs in 03. There was a lot of other stuff going on, and it sure wasn't JOB in there. You know what I mean? So let me get to these 2 super chats, and then I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to wrap this up. Puma Lee put Nike, music, arts, finance. Black people set the trends that the world loves to follow and deny our roles. Black Panther T'Challa scared Disney. And then he also put, I really want a live action a Nazi movie. Okay, because I couldn't. I was over here struggling.
Listen. If they were scared of Black Panther, they are definitely not making it a Nazi movie. I'm telling you that one right now. I'm telling you that. Now, I don't know if you've ever watched it. I don't know if you've ever watched it. Did you watch the show American Gods?
I watched a little bit of it, but I'm not gonna sit up here like I watched all of it because
the first season was good because Orlando Brown was in, not Orlando Brown, Orlando Jones. Orlando Jones was in it, and he played a Nazi.
Okay.
Yeah. He was easily the best character in the show, and he wasn't even the lead. But every time he was on screen and he would start spitting that poetry and the way that he would say it and the stuff that he was saying, I'm telling you, a lot of people watch that show because of his character, but then something happened, because there's always something happening. His character got written out of the show after the second season. And when he got written out of the show, I stopped watching. Their ratings went down tremendously after his character got written out of the show because, in my opinion, he was the show. Even more so, people watched the show more for him than they did the lead character. And no, for real, like anybody who's watched American Gods can back me up on this. The first two seasons was flawless because he was there, but then when he got written out, we didn't see him in the third season because of something going on, some behind the scenes. I forgot what it was about. I think he had a conflict with someone working on the show, and they sided with them over him. But that's what they say. Yeah. But after that, it was over. And remember, then they said that he wanted to make a Mansa Musa movie. I said, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me get this. Let me play this for the super chat. And we're gonna wrap this up.
You are truly amazing. Thank you for your super chat.
You wanna be my enemy. All right. Thank you, Torian. Thank you, Lauren, for coming in. Lauren, you and Torian, y'all got me thinking about a lot of stuff, and that's what I wanted this conversation to be about. Have a think piece. No emotions, no shots, just thinking and kind of understanding, what Hollywood is doing and what they have done and what they continue to do. So I appreciate both of you guys, contributing to this conversation. I really do. Any last things, and tell them how they can be able to find you.
Well, you can find me on here.
Go ahead, Torian. Yeah.
You can find me on here, Torian Rain Reloaded. I'm also on Elon's echo chamber, known as Twitter, at Torian Rain Reloaded, and I'm also on Instagram, Torian_Rain. I'm also on Threads too. Y'all better not sleep on Threads.
I'm on Threads more.
I love being on Threads, like especially when I need to get away from Elon's echo chamber, and that's quite often. And Threads is like it's like a safe haven. It's like a breath of fresh air. It's like sleeping on a Tempur-Pedic mattress, whereas Elon's echo chamber is like sleeping on a broken spring mattress. But yeah, so yeah, that's where you can find me at.
You can find me on Blue Sky. I'm like trying to get away from X a little bit. I can't stand Elon Musk, but I've been on there for so long that there are folks on there I want to communicate with, so I just sort of linger at LV Burke. But really, I'm transitioning over to Blue Sky, and of course, I've got a YouTube channel. Same thing, Lauren Burke, and occasionally I'm on Roland Martin, and that's pretty much it. I've got a Substack called Black Virginia News. I report a lot on politics. I typically don't do entertainment, which is why I spent a lot of time in this conversation keeping my mouth shut, because you guys are experts on this one. But I do enjoy listening to people talk about it and just learning about things I don't know anything about. So in entertainment, I love being on with you guys, and thanks a lot. Dre, thanks a lot.
Of course, and I got to meet Lauren last year. You're just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human being, wonderful person. So I appreciate any time that you could come hang with me and I could get some insight from you and listen. Of course, my man Torian doing his thing just hit 73,000 subscribers on his YouTube channel. So that's amazing. That's awesome. So we congratulate everyone in this space, and you guys who was into the channel. I was going to go hang out. I was gonna go eat, go hang out for the night or whatever. I was like, no, I wouldn't have this conversation. I was supposed to have it this morning or earlier today. I slept all day. You know what I mean? But now I'm having this conversation. But I appreciate you guys for having this conversation with me. The guys in the chat, the people who came on, I really appreciate you guys. But you already know, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that bell notification so you can never, ever, ever miss one of my videos again. Until next time, I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace and vibe power. Enjoy the rest of you guys this weekend. Where is the outro at? Look, I got to get these guys up out of here, but of course, I got to go. Wait a minute. You're telling me the video's over? What? Huh. Okay, I guess so. If you have came to this portion of the video, thank you so very much for sticking to the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to hit that little bell notification so you never miss one of my videos. And if you really want to, you don't got to, go ahead and follow the social media links that's down below. Until next time, I'll let you guys later. Peace and vibe higher, y'all. Y'all take care of yourself.